Hi, I'm Callie from Carroll College and Interdependence Assisted in Helena, Montana. I'm showing up, I'm not sure if this is from the future or the past, but to beg forgiveness from everyone. We had our panel on spirituality in Equine Assisted Services on Thursday of last week, and it was beautiful and connective and creative. And I'm really excited about all of the possibilities that come with the discussion that we had. And it came amidst the kind of chaos that most of us know right now. And I certainly haven't known before this moment. I experienced a bit of a medical emergency about a week before and spent a couple of days in the hospital, and we were able to get the panel going, and I did okay, but I did forget to hit the record button until about 40 minutes into the panel. So I am going to be sharing a link to the transcript from the full panel. So if you would like to read the answers that our panelists gave for the first half of the panel, you are more than welcome to do that. I will also be sharing what we do have after this announcement. And we also have a discussion with Judy Brightman from Australia to get a little bit of an international perspective on spirituality and equine assisted services. So we're really hopeful that this conversation will continue. We are incredibly grateful to all of our panelists, to our students, and to everybody in our community who showed up and was willing to engage in a conversation that most of us have been told not to even talk about with our closest family members on the best of days. So thank you again for showing up. Thank you for being present with us and giving us a chance. And I can't wait to see what comes of this. Thank you so much.
That is how I have felt it's like with my own spiritual journey. I don't identify as a Christian or in that way. It's more indigenous based, but it very much is that, are there these signs, spirit, God, creator, goddess, Allah, however you identify your spirituality, your religion, there are these consistent themes. And what I find really interesting is that it is often are you paying attention? And it's never a closed invitation. There's always a continual invitation. And I also think what's really beautiful is as we went through this program at Carroll College, we also learned a lot about how horses have impacted spirituality, religion, culture, and they are in all of them. You think about the Four Horsemen, when you think about more Christian based, but the same with the Quran and same so much in indigenous type of spiritual teachings too. And so it's this very, very connected. And I can see how it would be really beautifully integrated in a vast way. Um, Thank you. Thank you for sharing. All right, Diana, we're going to move on to you as we continue kind of this path. And I am seeing some trends or some themes, and a lot of it is uh, this how do we connect to higher self and um, this cultural perpetuity and how do we provide on. And so I'm excited to see what you have to say and how it adds to it.
Well, thanks. Me too. No, I am enjoying this conversation. It's one of those places where you feel like home, where there are so many common beliefs and things that draw us together. And one of those things is horses. And it was interesting. I did not realize that she is on here, but I know Judy Schneider, who's on the phone. We know each other through horses. We've never met. She's in New Mexico, and I'm in Arizona, so we've never met. But it's amazing the community that horses wrap around you, and the connections that you make through that.
I feel the same about Pam Salem. I see Pam in so many group calls and community events, and I don't think we've ever met in person, but every time I see Pam's picture come up on a screen, it just is like, Pam's here. And so I'm really grateful to have you here today, Pam, as well.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. So, you know, when Callie read a little bit of my bio, I was raised in a religious family. And as you know, as you grow up and you learn, and you know, some of the other ladies spoke to the fact, you know, that you're being told what to, you know, what's right, what's wrong. You have the rules, you have the expectations, and I felt like that so much of my religious upbringing was missing something. This was my own perspective that, you know, I'm not saying that's the way it is for everybody. It was my own perspective. And it felt to me like my religion and my spirituality at that point was coming from the outside in. You know, I was being told how to live and what to live, and it was beautiful ways to live and do all of that. I'm not saying any of that was wrong, but it just felt like for me something was missing. So in my late teens and early 20s, as I got out on my own and living my own life, I started questioning that, looking and so experiencing. So I've done a lot of reading. I've attended a lot of, you know, classes, and just sought so many different paths of what spirituality means. And what I have come to realize for me, as well as a lot of my friends and the clients that I work with, is that spirituality is an action word. Spirituality is an expression of our life. That's how we, you know, that's the way we live the way we live our lives is our expression of spirituality. And for me, that is continually growing and evolving. And it sounds like for many of you, that's your own experience as well. And I look back on my life, and, you know, in talking with clients and friends and family members, spirituality for a lot is something you pick up maybe on Sunday, or, you know, when you're when you're at the holiday times, you know, Easter and Christmas and Passover, and, you know, all those different that's things that we tend to pick up and we live it for a moment and then we go back to life, sort of thing. And so I was looking for something more, and went through phases where I thought I'd found myself, thought, well, I've lost myself again, then I found myself, that I've, you know, just kind of that cycle of expansion, you know, that expansion and contraction as we go through our own personal journeys. And so through all of that, I really believe wholeheartedly that my purpose here is to create a life that is a reflection of my soul. And that's even the tagline for my private coaching practice, with that, because that is my expression of spirituality. That is who I am. That is who I am evolving into, whatever that belief happens to look like. And so spirituality for me is just the way we live our lives. And when we live our lives connected to our soul or our spirit or our higher self, or whichever term you want to place around that, we are living the most authentic version of self that we can. And when we create life from that solid foundation, it's amazing. It's a miracle. You know, it's one of those miracles that we talk about in the spiritual and religious worlds, is when we find ourselves and when we align with ourselves. And so for me, being with horses, like all of you, I'm pretty sure everybody on this call has that experience. When we're with horses, that's when we feel our soul. That's when we feel the energy and the spirit of everything around us, everything that is live. And many place the word God, some use the word universe, some use different words around that. But when I'm with my horses, that's my spiritual spot. That's where I'm fully accepted. That's where I am encouraged to learn and grow. And that's where I feel. I think spirituality for me is a feeling. You know, it's something that I feel in my heart and I am passionate about. And I live my life in a way that it is a reflection of that. And it's always evolving. So that always changes, which is great because I don't feel like I'm not a person who likes to feel stuck or stagnant or that sort of thing. And so for me, that's what spirituality is. And when I first got horses, I dreamed of horses all my life. I loved horses, couldn't wait to get horses, but I'm in my mid-40s when I got my first horse. I had moved from Utah to Arizona and thought, okay, this is it. This will be my midlife crisis, right? I'm going to get horses. So, I realized I didn't know anything at all about keeping a horse alive or even what to do with it. I just knew I wanted to be with them. And so I started volunteering at rescues. And my first horse, well, of course, was a rescue as of that. And he was my spiritual partner. He is the one that really brought me into this work. And I remember at that time I had a coaching practice from my home office, and I would so excited about getting horses that I would take, talking about it for weeks before they came home. And through an absolute miracle, which is a story for another time, instead of one, I have two horses that came home from completely different situations. They actually came together within 3 days of each other. So I went from 0 to 2. And couldn't wait for everybody to meet them. And they couldn't wait because I'd been talking. So I'd go out there and, you can't just look at a horse. You want to be in with the horse. You want to be touching the horse and having, the horse touch you. So they would go into the stall, and I just found myself not purposely coaching, but, helping them through whatever the experience was with the horse. And they were having these breakthroughs, in traditional talk coaching. These are things we've been working on for a while, and within minutes and with the horse, they were having these amazing breakthroughs. And so that was my introduction into this work. And I began looking for some place to learn how to do this work. And I wasn't finding anything at that time that fit what I would call that spiritual purpose of mine. I'm intuitive, I'm empathic, I live in, I read energy, there's all of that stuff. And I wasn't finding a program that was talking to the way I did the work. So I just kept doing the work. And that started in 2010, and here I am today. And so those magical moments with the horses is where I feel my clients reach deep inside themselves, perhaps places they haven't seen or even known existed ever in their life, and reuniting them with their purpose and their passion and who they are and their connection to life and everything that is around them. And we've heard a couple of stories about when people have been with horses, their expression of, wow, they're feeling like they're with God. They're feeling connected to something far greater than themselves in a very powerful way. And I treasure those moments with my clients when they do that. And there's usually a mixture of tears and smiles and relief, and sometimes even some laughter, because now that, because of the joy that brings into their life. And so for me, my private coaching business is all about creating that life that's a reflection of your soul. And that's really my main point when working with clients. And over the years, I've had numerous people say to me, oh, well, do you teach people how to do this? This is so amazing. It's changed my life. I would love to do this work. And I was like, no, I'm just a coach. I don't, I'm practicing my own method. I'm not following anybody else's. And in 2020, a friend of mine called and she says, I keep getting all these requests. And she works very similar to the way I do. She says, I keep getting all these requests to teach this course. She says, would you want to get together and create some sort of a training course? And I was like, sure. And then COVID hit. And it was the most beautiful year because that was the perfect time for us to sit down and have those conversations about what our course would look like. And for us, for me, it is a very spiritual based. We talk about connection. We talk about empathy. We teach intuition. We teach of course, coaching aspects, and we're very trauma informed, but we also teach about the horse being a sentient being with the feelings and emotions that all of you ladies have shared so beautifully in your experiences. So not only did they move me into this field of equine assisted coaching, which is just the most amazing thing I've ever done in my entire life. If you'd have told me 20 years ago, crying in my cubicle, I'd be doing this, I'd have thought you were crazy. But now I'm also teaching a course, and you know, we've been teaching it since 2020, actually, and there is so much potential in this field. And there are so many hearts to be touched. I can't do it all alone. All of us on this call can't do it on our own. You know, it's bringing people into this, especially in a world where we are becoming digitally more disconnected. And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day about AI. You know, it's this big thing coming up, and whatever your views are on that, this is an industry that AI cannot take over, because you cannot mimic what a horse does. And I think that is the future of, you know, that's going to sustain this energy, because we are talking hearts and we are talking souls and we're talking passion, we're talking spirituality, and we're talking about the core of who we are individually as humans.
Yeah. I thank you for sharing all of that. 2020 was a wild time for everybody. I was in a mastering class kind of figuring those things out and pivoting, but it's interesting how that can create space for there to be new development or new things. Even, you know, just the gifts that horses can give us around in that time, we lost connection, but you could still have physical connection with a horse and those things that are so important. And you're so right. Technology and AI, it can support and it can do a lot of things, but there are things that it just cannot give us that really do hit us deep in our soul, in our genes, in our bodies, um, in our histories that we have lived, in the generations that came before us. And it is the thing that will keep this going. Yeah, just thank you for sharing that. Thank you for talking about cycles. And I also really love just that create a life that is reflective of your soul, my soul, like that is it, right? That's what I think about with spirituality as well. As I grew up trying to figure out what that meant for me too. And that's kind of what it comes to. It's like I've come to it's about how I live and what I'm going to give now, what I'm receiving, but also what's to come. The Blackfeet up in Canada, they call that cultural perpetuity, which is the extension of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Um, what I find fascinating about this, and we'll go into this next question, is I was always, as the science-based person, um, I always thought, you know, that's it, right? And then psychology, Maslow is kind of like, this is how we go through it. And it was always taught to me that this, you know, higher self, the top of that pyramid, was actually something that almost nobody ever achieved. And I just sat in these classes in my soul going, how how is that possible? Why would that be possible? And it wasn't until a couple years ago where I kind of found that missing piece. And it's really, it's no, that that's just the base of this teepee, and there's actually so much more that we're missing. And it is this, it's this, how do we connect to self and spirit, but community and self and spirit, and then even beyond, and just kind of how it continues to fill and grow. As we've all kind of, as you all have spoken to, in your different lanes of spirituality. But yeah, this need to give back what has been given to you, is really beautiful. And so with that, I'm going to move us into our second question, and we'll kind of go in reverse order here. So Diana, you're going to go again. Why do you feel open discussion around spirituality and equine assisted services is necessary and helpful?
Oh, wow. And I only have 10 minutes or
You don't have to
less,
do
a little over time.
You don't have to do 10 minutes if you want. And honestly, to the other panelists, if you're wanting to raise your hand and feeling like, you know, tag me in, or if you guys want this to be more of a fluid discussion amongst yourself, I think that that is totally appropriate.
Absolutely. This is a topic that I think until more recently has kind of been taboo. You know, we haven't really talked about it outside of our communities, outside of our families, that sort of thing. And yet it's at the core of who we are. So I believe that any discussions we have about this that are open and accepting and non-judgmental and non-confronting, you know, all of those other things that are very accepting. I think it is so important because we all come from different experiences. We all come from different backgrounds. You look at the cultures around the world who have maybe practice their spirituality in different ways, yet at the core, it's the same. You know, we want the same things in life. And so when we can begin to broaden our conversation and the words we use around spirituality, it becomes an inclusive conversation. And I know, you know, for me, and I think a lot of you, there's no better way to have that conversation than with a horse, because it goes beyond words. And I think that's what spirituality is. We try to find words that describe our spirituality, but yet it is something greater than the words we put to it, because it's that feeling. And that's why, for me, I've come to that conclusion. For me, it's that expression of how I live my life. I can't put a word to it, but I can act it out. I can be that person in life. So, you know, I think in equine assisted services across the board, horses mirror our truth. You know, that's one of the key phrases we use a lot, is horses are mirrors for us. And they mirror back and reflect back to us parts of self sometimes that we don't even see, things that we don't even exist, or maybe that we are afraid to acknowledge. And that includes our spiritual self, our spiritual being, that soul deep within inside. Spirituality, you know, I've said this several times, it's so personal. It's not prescribed. It's not the same for everyone. So coming to your own language and your own expression of that, I think is critical, because my spirituality, while it has the same maybe components as the rest of you, it's expressed differently in the way I live my life. And that is something I think to be cherished and to be proud of, you know, to be that individual. I touch people in ways that some of you may not, and vice versa. You know, that's why I think this field is so ripe for potential, because we're not competing here. You know, people are drawn to the work through those people who touch them, and we all do it in different ways. And to do that, we have to be connected. And it's not just an external connection. For me, spirituality is that internal connection.
Yeah, it's all of the above. It's just like the way you're describing it, it makes me, there's just so much movement to it. And it's not a one size fits all. There are themes that we can connect with. And I really appreciate you saying how important it is. Um, and it's been a taboo subject, and it takes a lot of vulnerability to talk about, because, you know, with the history of religion, if you weren't on the right side of it, that might not end well for you. And that is still true today in our societies and across the world. But I really feel like us trusting, having a little faith, putting something else into the world, of kind of modeling how to do this, that these are those steps of how it can be something different. And yeah, it's beautiful. The field was not always as collaborative as it was. And so to have all of these different panelists and perspectives and be able to have a conversation that is safe and educational is a really beautiful thing. And I appreciate it so much. Dana, I'm going to let you say anything else if you want to on that before I pass you back to Katie, or yeah.
You know, again, you got me, you hit my passion, and I could talk forever on this. But I'll just wrap up. You know, when we talk about spirituality and equine assisted services, there's no greater safe space. There is no greater way to feel God or spirit than standing in harmony with horses and nature. And this provides that space that so many people are missing in their life. And from that space, you know, we then, that creativity and that authenticity inside come up. And, you know, yes, there's often things to work through, but that's okay. That helps us find more of who we are. So I'm excited to continue this discussion with everyone else.
Yeah, what a beautiful concept of safety of thought, of safety of being. I think especially in the equine assisted services world, there has been competition or feeling of it has to be this way and it can't be this way, or this way is wrong, or this is the only ethical way. And some of the time, the woo-woo-ness of that has kind of been built into that, right? Those pieces around the services that are hard to pin down. And in the world that we're living in, I can't think of anything more like truly beautiful than saying, yeah, this is always going to be you to your core. It cannot be anybody else's. It can only be yours. And I would love to see it. I would love to see you hold it. I would love to be here with you in it. And I believe that being able to step back into those pieces of nuance together from a different perspective is one of, for me, the most connective things I get the opportunity to do with people. And so I just hope everybody here knows how much appreciation I have in my soul in this moment in my life for what is happening right now.
Thank you, Callie. All right, Katie.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely appreciate spaces like this to be able to dialogue about the topic of spirituality, especially in the equine assisted services world. And I would say just the category of spirituality within the context of equine services has been pretty neglected over the years. I mean, equine services in general, I think is still like a pretty new, I guess, cutting edge service that we're seeing really develop. But it's a lot of it has been like the physical benefits of riding horses or the mental health benefits, all really good things. And I think a lot of that focus has especially just been because of like the I don't know, the ability for like billing and insurance and things like that that are like studied and proven. And so I think because of that, the spirituality side of it has kind of been pushed out and neglected in a lot of ways. So I appreciate a dialogue like this. This is like really special to be a part of, honestly. Because yeah, like I said, I like for me, um, my spirituality has been the core of where I've found healing, where I've found hope in my life, where I've found forgiveness and like restoration. And so I actually went to Carroll with the intention of becoming a counselor, a therapist, and then using horses, as a part of that. And I mean, all power to those that do that, but I really feel like I have this gift of being able to incorporate so personally and um, like I have this platform to be able to bring spirituality into all of the equine services that I provide in a very tangible way. And I believe that it's effective. I believe like we're all very spiritual beings. Like one of the core beliefs that I have as a Christian is that we were made in the image of God, with the design to be in fellowship with the Lord, with the design to engage with him uh spiritually, and it's like a part of our identity, it's a part of our purpose. And so to neglect that piece of us as humans um is a disservice, really. So I really appreciate dialogue like this. I think there definitely, yeah, needs to be more. And just the emphasis of just the importance of spirituality in all of our lives as humans, and just how amazing horses are in like bringing that out of us and calling those things out. I mean, I think all of us can agree, like we're all on this chat because we um, see how horses can be so like incorporated into our spirituality, so
Yeah, we
yeah.
see it, we feel it, we witness it. And it is, I can't remember which one of you was talking about it being, what people call it a miracle, and maybe it was several of you who have spoken to that, but I don't know any other word to call that because I don't have the science to back it right in that moment. And there are times when I don't want it because it makes it less effective, or it makes it less powerful for that person, for that experience. And so I think, Katie, to what you were talking about is it is such an important conversation, and it makes me think about scope of practice and also thinking about, everybody's been talking about trainings and the breadth of knowledge and this vast amount of time it has taken to kind of get us into these places. And spirituality can be just a scary thing for many reasons. But it is so important. And as someone who went to Carroll, wanted to be a nurse, and then found counseling with Equine Assisted Services, that's a part of counseling too. And so you just can't escape it. It's a part of us. Thank you for sharing today. All right, Melissa, you are next.
Thank you. Gosh, it's been just a treat and a delight, and I've jotted down notes, so I'm excited to revisit all of this. So, why? So the question was, I typed it in for somebody asked, what question were we answering anyway the second go round? So I'll repeat it since it's right in front of me. Why do you feel open discussion around spirituality and equine assisted services is necessary or helpful? And just to reiterate what Diana and Katie said, it is a very real thing that so many of us see and sense and feel and know in the depths of our soul, but it is not something that is often talked about, or it's not talked about enough. So in my world, I do know some faith-based centers who are similar to us. And then I love the expansion of equine assisted services into the coaching model and the learning model and the psychotherapy and on, because there is something so there. My husband and I have been on a journey over the last few years, and it really started as, well, I can't say it started because it's been in process for years and years and years, but a culmination was in 2022, I think it was 2022, we attended the Warwick Schiller's Journey on Podcast Summit and met all kinds of amazing people. And really, I looked around, and in fact, I had a group text at that point because we had a group chat and said, is anybody else in equine assisted services? And in a room full of 250 people, there was only one. Now that was several years ago. I think there's more now. There's more now. And I see Kate nodding because I know that you've been part of this. So there's more now. But in that first one, I was like, where are my people? Why are we not flooding this room? So it was a little bit eye-opening. And I thought, gosh, we need to kind of take these concepts and walk down this road together. So it has been, especially since that time, just a joy to have some of these conversations. My husband's an academic, a seminarian, but we started looking for some, especially from our Christian tradition, but for some faith-based books, speaking to some of these things. And what we found was that most of them were either on the devotional side or that they just didn't exist. So we're writing one. So we started putting this together to write one. And we're working through it, but really the hub of our book, as we kind of coin a phrase in equine assisted theology, and theology just means your thoughts of God. So it's an equine assisted theology. But for us is going back to the scripture in Job 12, where the scripture says, ask the beasts and they will tell you. the fowls of the air, and they will tell you, or speak of the earth, and the earth will teach you, and the fishes of the sea will declare to you. Who among you does not know that the hand of the Lord is in this? So to us, that's like the horses. I mean, you can substitute the horses. The hand of the Lord is in this. Like, that's what we're going to write about. So that's, we're super excited about that, because that is our lived experience. And I think it does need to be talked about more. I think putting resources into the hands of people and just sharing these experiences as they are real, they are valid. And in my one of my convictions, and I realized that the industry of therapeutic riding and different kinds of mounted therapies, I mean, very much you moving against the idea of the horse being a tool for therapy, and we are using partner language. So I think, and of course, my faith tradition is guilty of this, as are others, but of dominance, dominion theories, all of those have been misinterpreted, I believe. And so we're going to explore all of those things in the book. And even one other thing I wanted to share today was Tom Dorrance, who many people might know as one of the founders of the whole natural horsemanship movement, which set us on the trajectory that we're still on. But in his book, True Unity, he identified that horses are of mind, body, and the third factor is spirit, and sort of the horse's spirit talking to the human spirit. So it's been there. It just hasn't been pulled out and kind of explored. So thank you for allowing me to be part of this and just to share those things.
Thank you so much. I got chills when you read that. Is it a passage? I'm gonna really fail my Catholic university. Okay. Because it just is so universal. That's what I feel in that. Yeah, I don't think it matters what your faith is. I think you can connect to this. The world is our teacher, and we should pay attention, and we're invited to pay attention. And I am so excited that you are creating a book about this. That makes me so excited. I'm just in awe of where this industry has gone. And I, just like you guys have said, I feel really honored to be a part of this discussion today, because Kate from 2011 probably would have never thought a conversation like this could exist. And so it's a very beautiful thing.
I think
All
the
right.
reality is, in 2011, this conversation couldn't have existed in the same way. I think there are people who wanted to have it, and it was happening as everybody's spoken to. But there are so many other things, so many other pieces of equine assisted services that we've tried to piece together and tried to understand. And I think science, it is a hardship of science sometimes that we have to separate faith from science and spirituality and magic and truth, when those things, they coincide.
Mhm.
And I think that the world can be incredibly hard, and it is often the hardest when it is the most beautiful. And I think the world and everything we are experiencing in 2025 has also maybe allowed us a little bit of freedom from the society that most of us were raised in, where you don't talk about religion or politics, even with your family. And there are these huge pieces of ourselves that we've had to keep hidden away because they aren't allowed to be shared or known. And I think that having the opportunity to say, no, my faith and these deepest parts of myself deserve to be seen, they deserve to be shared, and there's nothing wrong with them, is an incredible gift to be offered in everything that we're sitting with in life right now. And yeah, I have just an incredibly deep appreciation for everybody who is willing to sit at a table and have hard discussions, because I think that what I can say for myself and I see reflected in the faces of the people sitting here is just that sense of being seen, of being held, of being with. And it's all I've wanted to offer out of this panel is that sense. And I just won't ever be able to probably accurately express what I think everybody is offering our community right now.
Thank you, Callie. All right, Kate, I'm not going to butcher your name again, but I would love to hear what you have to say as our last panelist to speak about this.
Yeah, thank you. It so much is to that taboo piece, which is, you know, things that are taboo are sort of in the shadow, but we can't really heal until something is brought out of the shadow and is illuminated, you know. And I found the part of the reason I wanted to create Awakening with Equines, and I shifted my name from Equine Rockstars to that, and then created the training program, was because I saw this need to just own it. It is, you know, there are awakenings happening. And I see so much often people don't want to talk about money, you know, in entrepreneurship sometimes, or in this field, even in my CERT program that I originally went to, they didn't want to talk about money or emotions. And I was like, that's exactly what I want to talk about. I want people to feel uncomfortable. Let's talk about pricing. Because we can heal it then, right? It's bringing it out of the shadow, bringing it to light, but in this safe space, modeling the horses, being non-judgmental, being open to different points of view. All three of my horses are wildly different, you know, and so it's like that's a good thing, I think, to be able to also for people to understand we can all be different. And I do believe at our core, it is what, you know, it is about the soul, right? And my master's in spiritual psychology, their book was called Loyalty to Your Soul. And it is that whole, like, that's was dropping that ego, coming into that soul space. But what I find is if we do talk about it, we can find ways to sit with it, to process it, to heal, to, you know, question ourselves. I mean, that's what I had to do for myself. And I think then if we start to talk about it as an industry, we can also find tools. Like we might, I mean, in my program, so many of them wanted to try sound baths. So I think they've all done sound baths with horses now, which they never would have originally, you know, and so it's like, I'm glad we're talking about that. I think it also gives us permission to be ourselves. And I have like two quick stories on that. One was my first team building that I ever did with a movie studio. A woman turned to me who was a participant. She said, "Thank you so much for talking about energy." She goes, "You know, I do Reiki a couple times a week." She's a practitioner after work at the movie studio, and she was in HR. And I said, "That's really cool. Like, tell me more." And so all of a sudden she started talking about it, and one of the guys overheard it. I think it was her boss, and he's like, "That's amazing. Can you tell us more?" So she turned and shared for the first time her, like, what we'd call woo woo, which I don't even like that word at all. And is she brought it out to that group, and they were all able to like see a side of her. You know, she was able to bring this piece to herself of who she really is to work. And so they were all really interested, and the horses helped them be in that space of like non-judgmental acceptance. And so I think it gives us permission to be ourselves, to share our gifts, to step into our gifts more. I know for me, like I have held back so many of my gifts, whether it was like sharing my intuition. I held back this priestess piece of myself. I've held back that I channel all the time. I held back the animal communication stuff. And I've been stifling my gifts, and I don't want that for anyone anymore. Right. And I think as we can have these conversations and feel like we can be in safe space, we directly deal with the witch wound, the light worker persecution piece that we've been through. If you believe in past lives and the stuff we've been through, and even if it's not a past life in this lifetime, whether you had a family member that thought that was crazy or not. Right. So it allows us to be more whole. It allows us to be free, which is what the horses are in that space. And then when we have these different tools or these different ways of talking about it, it can become a lifestyle. We can bring it into our practice, and then our people can find us, right? And that was the biggest takeaway for me, was that I feel like I finally found like my heart clients, my soul contract clients, because I was able to finally start to voice that this is an awakening and that I'm doing spiritual psychology with horses. And so now it's like I know who I can really best serve and who needs me. And the horses have helped me become more, to create that safe space so that I can like speak my truth and I can show people that this is what I'm interested in, what I'm about, and how I live my life and what I care about. And then the people that want that find me, people who want to have, you know, to like, I can think of some of my clients who would love to go sit with Katie and talk about scripture, you know, and like then they can find her, right? And so I think it's really important because then it creates that energetic match. So I believe kind of all of that. And the piece for me that I had, it was years ago, I was at a training and I really was sitting there and I wasn't resonating. And this was a trainer I'd wanted to see so badly. And I felt my horse call me back to the barn and I was like, what, why? And I literally left the training, went back and I said, she goes, I want you to learn from me now. You've learned from all these people, but I want you to just learn from me for a while. And she's like, I will show you what liberty work is. And it is something that isn't being taught necessarily by people. It's about who you are from the inside. And it really created this huge change, but I felt like such an island. I was having these experiences and I didn't know who to talk to or who was around. I had a great mentor at the time, but I wanted so badly to not be on an island and to have people that I could talk to. And so back then, one of the first entries in the space was the Healing with Horse Collective. And then I really wanted to create the Facebook group, The Awakening with Equines. And there's more now, which is great, you know, where people are able to talk and feel like they're with like-minded, like-hearted people, where it is safe space. And I just love that you brought different groups of people together here because we need to see that too. We need the perspective and then people go where they feel resonant, you know, and that's what matters. And my horses are the same. They'll go to the people they feel most resonant with or they most want to teach compared to others. So yeah, I just think there's a healing piece in this. And like, we no longer have to be an island.
Mhm.
And that is, you know, either that woman who finally got to share about her Reiki love or me who finally gets to, you know, to speak in a group like this. And it's just really important. And so much so that in real time, I'll just share that the biggest thing that kind of came from me in working on being here today was I don't resonate with the word coach anymore for myself. And I still love it for the industry, but I don't even love the EAL, equine assisted learning. So for me, I just decided I'm changing it and embracing more of who I am, which is equine partnered spiritual growth. And I'm putting that out there. And that's what I want to do now, because that's what it's about. It is what Melissa just said. It wasn't just mind or body or emotions. You know, it is about spirituality. And for me, my mental health is stronger because of my spirituality. Like they go hand in hand. So I finally just decided, okay, as of now, moving forward, changing it to equine partnered spiritual growth. And so it is. So
Wait, what? Like in this meeting?
this is the first time I've ever shared that. Yes. And I'm changing it in my signature and everywhere else. So thank you for bringing this forward because it created my own, like, that's the whole goal of this, right? The more we talk about this, we each can make our own changes. Like Melissa's doing her book, like this will inspire parts of the book, I hope. So, you know, there's ways that we all can kind of bring forward more of ourselves when we have spaces where we can. And it is a little nerve-wracking out there, you know, and I'm still balancing like, well, this is also going on. Like, is it fully safe? And, you know, so it's okay to, for me, I've taken sometimes 5 steps forward and then 2 steps back. And then, you know, and that's okay too, right? It's okay like to share little bits and get more and more comfortable with it. And I just want to be a space where anyone can say to me, like, Kate, I think I'm like talking to dead people. I'm like, got it, cool. Like, you know, like no judgment. You know, the horses would have no judgment if you brought that to them, right? So that's just, I could share a lot more, but I'm gonna stop. So
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, as someone who feels more on the more of the tabooer side of spirituality, I just really appreciate what you're saying and really all of you just showing up and being so vulnerable and authentically yourself, as we have all talked to about the horses really supporting that in us. And even though our journeys are all different, there is so much that feels similar that and this is a subject that typically is so polarizing, as we talked about. And I don't know about other people, but I'm sure, I hope that you guys fill out the surveys and there'll be a spot for you to kind of talk about it there. But I feel closer to everybody's perspective than I did starting this. And that is no small feat. That took everybody on this meeting to hold that space. And I just feel really honored. I'm excited to see where this goes. Callie and I started our business together, Interdependence Assisted, with the same goals around how do we create this? How does this become more accessible to people? How do they know about what's going on? Because we don't want people to feel like islands, because there aren't just little islands. There might feel like there's vast water or ocean between. Um, but there is a lot of us out there, and man, amazing things happen when we come together and can have these conversations. And it makes me so excited for what is to come. Um, Callie, I'm going to hand it back to you to kind of wrap it up. I also have a slight request of you, Kate. You started you pulled a card for us. I would love it if you pulled a card for the ending for us to maybe sit with those who want to. Um, yeah, and if there's like Katie, if you'd like to provide a scripture, or Melissa, welcome to how we would like to wrap this up. But I'm going to hand it back to Callie.
Yeah, I just want to express my gratitude. Kate and I started this journey at Carroll. My seizure brain is having a hard time with the math. I don't know how many years ago.
2008.
Okay. So almost 20 years ago. And I have moved closer and further to the equine industry over the years. I am drawn back to it over and over and over and over again, because it is a community of people who show so much heart and care and spirit. And I consistently, over a nearly 20-year period, feel like a more whole person at the end of these conversations than I did at the beginning of them. And there just aren't words for the kind of gratitude that creates. It is a special thing that sustains through really dark times, and just can't be overvalued, I don't think. So I am incredibly excited about where some of these conversations might continue going, for Melissa's book. And Kate, I'm going to just be talking to you a lot more in the future. I have so many questions, well, for all of you, but yeah, that new title, it really sparked something in me as well. And I just can't wait for the future. I'm sorry that the beginning of this conversation will be cut off, and so there are parts of it that will be missed by some people, but I think that the conversation will continue. I think there will be a lot more beautiful conversations and growth, and I am just excited to see where it goes. And I'm grateful for everyone who has taken the time and energy to be here with us. We also have a conversation with Judy Brightman that we have recorded a couple of weeks ago. So we'll share that as well. And that just provides a little bit of a little global perspective, but I just want to keep having this conversation. And so whether it be email, if there's any way you wanted to reach out to myself or Kate or Marie or any of our panelists, please, I will, when I send out like Zooms, the recording, I'll send out contact information. So if there's anybody who's interested in continuing these conversations, let us know. We are all about it. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time and energy and effort and openness. And yeah. Okay, I'm going to, on that note, hit stop recording.